We call to order tonight's meeting of the Portland City Council. It's our second regular scheduled council meeting of the month. This is a meeting where we do transact business. I ask you at this time to stand for the prayer and pledge. Our Father in heaven, we're so thankful for this day and all many blessings that we have. We're so thankful to live in this community and we call Portland, and so thankful that we can have part in it as we make decisions, when we make them with considering you and considering the things that are best for the overall community. We do at this time ask special blessings on the ones who have recently lost loved ones. We've had served this community, and especially the ones who've lost their children up in Connecticut and also the world. A special blessing on them this time. Help us always to remember them. Be with us go through this holiday season. Help us all have safe trips and safe travels. Most of all, we thank thy Son, Jesus Christ. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Roll call, Ms. King.
Alderman Bratton.
Here.
Alderman Callis.
Here.
Alderman Coker.
Here.
Alderman Hardin.
Here.
Vice Mayor McDowell.
Here.
Alderman Menace.
Here.
Alderman White.
All right, thank you. Alderman White did call, and he is not feeling very well at this time, so that's the reason he is not here tonight. Next, we need approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion to get the agenda on the floor?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Does anyone have anything they'd like to add to the agenda? I just got, there's no business will take place, but under the finance, which not only right for Public Works part, Doug Yeagle's just going to inform you of something. And then under the public safety, I'm going to have Richard talk a little bit about, of course, on our mind, the situation happened at the school, a little bit what our police department is prepared to do and some things that we have done just to kind of let us know some things that they have done. So there won't be any business transactions, just some information.
Neither under planning or legislative, just like to talk briefly about the land use plan.
Okay. Any action required or tonight?
I don't know, not tonight.
Okay. Well, why don't we just do it under planning then? All right. And then also we'll inform the council and the public that we do need to have an executive session immediately following the council meeting. We'll do it in the conference room. So we do need to have an executive session with our attorney. If there are any add-ons or deletions to the agenda, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The first item on the agenda is a public hearing. This is a specific public hearing. It's a public hearing on ordinance 12-54. It's an ordinance to amend the City of Portland zoning map by rezoning an area or by zoning area of property of 21 parcels and public road right-of-ways of Vaughn Drive in Robertson County off Interstate 65. Does anyone in the public wish to make any comments on this rezoning? Anyone wish to make a comment? Not consider this public hearing closed. Next, we have communication from mayor and alderman. Does any of the aldermen wish to say anything to the public tonight? I just like to get this opportunity on behalf of the employees, and I know the council too. We want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I don't think we will have another televised meeting before either one of those dates, and so just wish. And then also, I know that it's a busy time of the year, and we will be off. The City Hall will be closed Monday and Tuesday of next week for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. Trash is always a big issue at that time because we're off 2 days trying to get caught up. Also, we have 2 to 3 times the amount of trash that we normally do. So we will be working extra hours, but you probably will be behind for a couple of weeks. So just ask you to please bear with us. And if we do miss somebody, please call us. Public Works will try to get caught up. But the next 2 weeks, we will do the best we can and put some extra people on and work extra hours. But we will be behind. There's no doubt about it. So just ask you to bear with us. All right. Is there anything else? Okay. If not, we've got this time public recognition. If anyone would like to address the council on an item on the agenda, would ask you to do it this time and hold your comments to about 5 minutes if you would. Anyone wish to address the council? All right, if not, we'll move on. We do have a guest with us tonight. We have Regina Bartlett with the Hendersonville Medical Center. I think she wants to, and I would ask you, she wants to make a presentation. At the end, she will have time for questions and answers, but we let her get through her presentation. Okay, Ms. Regina.
Can you hear me okay? This thing on? Okay. First of all, I want to thank your council for allowing me to have a little time on the agenda tonight. We have some exciting things to talk about. I know you guys have had some exciting conversation over the past few weeks and the past few sessions over some plans that Mayor Wilbur put forth, working with HCA and Portland Diagnostic Center up here. And then you've had some additional discussion since then from LifePoint. So I wanted to come forward tonight and really talk about that and make some talk a little bit about the past, a little bit about the present, and more importantly, though, about the future and where we see us going together, hopefully, up here in Portland. And for those of you who have not had the opportunity to meet, many of you I have. I'm Regina Bartlett. I'm the CEO at Hendersonville Medical Center and the Portland Diagnostic Center here in Portland. And I thought it was important if I could just take a few minutes and talk a little bit about the past as we talk about healthcare services here. All of you know that 4 years ago we had to make a very difficult decision to consolidate inpatient and emergency services at our campus here down to the Hendersonville site. And that was a difficult decision. It was painful. It was a hard decision to make. But I wanted to share and just refresh a little bit as to why that was necessary at the time. When we looked at 2008, we were on an inpatient side. We were only having 17% of the Portland citizens that needed inpatient care coming to the Portland Medical Center. So that it was only 448 patients in 2008 out of about 2,573 some odd patients from Portland that needed inpatient care. So on average, we were looking at about 5 patients a day in the facility. And then when we looked at the ER operations, only about half of the patients that were seeking ER care here in Portland actually were coming to the Portland campus to seek ER services here. So I guess the key point here that I really want to stress before I move on is that for healthcare services in our community, we need to really make sure we use those services because it's very expensive to maintain all the overhead for a hospital setting, and it costs a significant amount of resources, and that's very something we just need to keep in mind, of course, as we move forward. But in 2008, when we were looking at this to see what we were going to be able to do, we were operating at a loss on the Portland campus of $2.4 million for 2008 alone. So clearly, everyone can understand that that certainly is not sustainable. You can't operate a business and be at a loss of several $million on an annual basis. And we did try multiple things to make sure that we were reducing expenses and we were operating efficiently and all of those sorts of things, even to the point of with Mayor Wilbur's help and with then Representative Mike McDonald, we tried several times to get what we call a critical access status for the hospital, which is a federal status that allows rural hospitals to have a different reimbursement structure to allow, to offset, if you will, low volumes and things of that nature, so that you can sort of at least break even. Unfortunately, Portland doesn't meet those criteria, one of which being, I think it's 30 miles, past 30 miles from other healthcare services, or terrain that is onerous and not be able to get to healthcare services readily. So of course Portland doesn't fit that. So we were unsuccessful in doing that. So anyway, we really had to end up making that difficult decision. That was in 2008. So since 2009, however, we have continued to be here in Portland. Operating Portland Diagnostic Center, we've maintained imaging services here through the course of that time. We have a physician office building still on that campus that is fully occupied. We have our own TriStar physician group that is here and been here for many years, Dr. Kellogg and Dr. Ludy, that provides service to the community here. Sumner County EMS has retained and maintained a station on our campus there. We've donated land to the health department, many of you know that, and we also have made a commitment to the county to donate land for a fire and EMS station. When that funding is attained and we move forward, or they move forward on that. We support the community in a variety of ways, community events, and try to be good stewards and try to be good community partners in that regard. With that, I would like to recognize Kat Hastings. I know you guys know her very well. She runs our operation here in Portland, at Portland Diagnostic Center, and she is, I would say, really our ambassador to Portland here, to the Portland community. She is always out in the forefront in the community events. She's the newly appointed chair of the Portland Chamber of Commerce, and we're really proud of her for that. And we, as a matter of fact, Portland Diagnostic Center was just recognized as the large business of the year in Portland just a few months ago. So clearly, HCA TriStar is committed to being a good community steward and to bring healthcare services that are needed and will be utilized to the community. So that's kind of past. So let's talk about current. And the current piece I want to really spend a couple minutes talking about is the fact that Mayor Wilbur presented to the council back in November a partnership plan that we've worked on and I want to talk a little bit more about. And I will say that Mayor Wilbur joined the Hendersonville Medical Center Board of Trustees back in 2007, and he did that to represent the needs of the community of Portland. And I will say to you, he has done that. He's done a yeoman's job on that. He has always kept the needs of the community at the forefront and at the board table. So I appreciate his commitment to that, and I'm sure you guys do as well. About 18 months ago, he came to me with an idea on this partnership approach. And with that, the idea was for the city to purchase the campus and to consolidate city services and whatever that would be there for you guys to do. But in that, would there be a way for us to bring ER services back to the community? As that was really from the beginning part of that discussion. So we started negotiations. Some of you in the room helped with some of that as we worked through for the better part of this last year the specifics around that, which is what Mayor Wilbur, I know, shared with you guys a few weeks ago. So when we got to the point of finalizing and coming to terms is when then you guys need to start looking at the deal to see if it makes sense from a purchase standpoint. A few things that I did want to share with you number-wise that you may or may not have had. The purchase price for the campus is $1.5 million, is what we settled on in the letter of intent. The book value of that campus is $2.38 million. So HCA TriStar will be writing down that asset to almost $1 million to about $880,000, really writing off on our books. The last appraisal that we accomplished on that campus was January 2010, and that total campus was appraised for $3.48 million. So clearly, we feel that the purchase price of 1.5 is certainly a very fair and partnered price point. Along with that, I know there's been a little bit of a discussion out there about the ER side of subsidizing, the city having to subsidize that service. Really, that is not the case. To the contrary, the part of the negotiation to have a reduced purchase price was the ability for us to maintain healthcare services in up to 13,000 square feet of that building and carve that out and not have to pay lease on that for a period of 10 years. There was also some discussion about utilities and things of that nature, and just to clarify that, water and gas was included in that lease. That's very, very difficult to kind of break apart. However, on the electricity side, that would be separately metered, because running a CT scanner and imaging equipment and those sorts of things takes a lot of power. So clearly we would not expect the city to do that. So that would be a separate expense on our part. So following public discussion of this proposal from Mayor Wilbur, I know that then shortly thereafter, LifePoint came and made a presentation to the council about their interest in coming to Portland with a freestanding emergency room, and talked about that desire to do so. And then there's been a lot of course, media attention and other things going around after that. So that sort of brings us to the present. So now let's talk about the future a little bit. And I'm very excited to be here to talk about especially the future going forward with the City of Portland and HCA and TriStar. We remain committed to this very forward-thinking city partnership, and we hope that we can make this truly a reality. However, we feel that this bigger purchase decision needs to stand on its own as the members of the council weigh the opportunity. I think we've gotten it a little bit too integrated in the decision point about, does this make a good business decision for the city to do? And then you have the ER component in there. So therefore, tonight, I want to let you know that we're taking the ER equation out of the picture, okay? So I will make the formal and official announcement to you tonight that HCA has committed to reopen ER services at the Portland campus as soon as we could possibly make that happen. That will be happening no later than the end of 2013. Should happen much sooner than that. We have the funding approved, and so we're very excited to be able to let you know that tonight. As a matter of fact, we have a few renderings here if you want to take a look at those. Can you kind of pull it around, Casey? This is just the facade, so it's just a rendering. And this is around the side of the facility here, and you'll be able to see that a little bit more when we show you the site plan and how that really fits. Because as we go forward here, like I said, we are very hopeful that we will continue to have the opportunity to have this partnered deal with the city, because we really think that it makes a lot of sense for the city going forward, and really that consolidation of services, it really just makes a lot of sense. But we just don't want that to be part of this whole discussion. So this is going to be on the side of the campus, and you'll see that here in a minute. So it kind of gives you an idea of what it's going to possibly look like. I don't know if the tree will be up here, but you know, the architects like to make it look real, green space and everything. This is a rendering. You may have seen this because this was in the original discussion that we were having with the mayor as to how we would carve out up to 13,000 square feet in the existing building, because we need to segregate that because it needs to be very separate. So we'd put a wall, kind of firewall, carve it out here, and then this would be a 10-bed ER with trauma room, and then we'd upgrade imaging capability as well with some new equipment, radiology equipment, CT scanner, and so forth. And it would be in the existing footprint where imaging is today. And then to give you an idea of where it looks like from the site standpoint, we got a bigger blow up of the current facility. So this is the whole campus here, the building. This is the medical office building today. This is the entry today to the campus. All the gray here would be what the city would be purchasing, as well as 56 acres. And then this would be where we would operate the ER and the imaging services with the separate entry right here on the side. Okay. Now, all that being said, we are going to pick up the pace, and we, like I said, expect this to be underway very, very quickly. We haven't done much more on the layout here outside of what we've been working on with the city and just that concept. So those have to be finalized, of course, and then we have to get inspections and all that sort of stuff. Construction, we would estimate once we get started, maybe 6 months, maybe a little bit less. But nevertheless, by the end of the year, we should have full operations back up for ER. In the meantime, we'll love to continue to talk with the city council about the purchase of the campus. We, again, like I said, we stay committed to that and would love to see that happen because we do think that that long term is a wonderful opportunity and a wonderful idea. So with that, I will open that up for any questions that you guys may have. Yes,
Doing this ER regardless whether the city
Regardless.
buys the property or not.
that's right.
How would the purchase price be affected?
Purchase price would not be affected if we move on with the original proposal, because what you saw there carved out was the exact rendering that we had talked about doing with the purchase of the building.
And how would that work as far as the property? What part of this would the city actually own?
Everything but that little carve out, everything.
And the ground that it's on?
Mm-hmm.
Would the
56
city would
acres.
own the ground that, no, I'm talking about the ground that carve-out's on. Would you,
Yeah,
would they?
yes, you would, because we would just be essentially leasing that space from you.
That's what, so
What if we
essentially-
don't own it?
That's what I'm saying, do we own it or?
Yes, you would own it.
So we would own the property, we would own all of the property?
Yes.
And you would essentially be leasing?
That's exactly
That spot.
right. And because of the negotiated purchase price of 1.5 million, a way to offset that reduced book value we're going to write down, certainly that helps offset that, to have that lease free, if you will, for a period of 10 years.
I guess
Anything else?
the question goes back to this because of the financial situation that HCA's found itself in and operating the facility here in Portland, as Alderman McDowell asked, you're going forward regardless.
That's right.
So if you're going forward regardless, and this council as a whole says, due to our financial capability, it's not a good decision for us to buy the property, how then do you say that financially you're able to operate that when there's no subsidy through anything because we didn't buy the property?
Yeah. Good question. And what we have looked at when we have scaled down the operation, and remember back in 2008, we're operating that entire facility with all the overhead and all the expenses associated with that, and keeping full operations of a hospital open for just a small handful of patients. So in shrinking it to ER size, we feel like we could at least get it to break even in an operations standpoint.
Can I ask you, and you may not know the answer, when the facility closed, how come the decision was made to close the whole facility and not just keep the ER open to maintain that for the city of Portland?
Yeah, I think that when we made that decision to close the facility, we were so far in arrears. Again, looking at almost a $2.5 million loss, it was almost impossible, if you will, to re-engineer that to maintain any kind of a margin. But now that we kind of come back and we look at scaling back, then that makes a little more sense.
Do you have a CON for this building already?
Yeah, well, let me speak to the CON because there's been some discussion about that. And let me clarify what that is. The Certificate of Need program in Tennessee is designed for addition of new services, expansion of services. If you're a hospital, if you have a project over $5 million, you have to go in front of a CON. We being HCA in Portland do not need a CON because we hold the license currently today for our campus in Portland for those services. That license, it falls under Hendersonville Medical Center. So we hold the license for services here as well as at our Hendersonville site. So there's no CON requirement.
So you don't have to have a certificate of need?
No, no, sir. As a matter of fact, I sent notice to the state today that we were going to be reopening services here to the licensure board.
What's the motivation in selling the remainder of this property if you're going to utilize the emergency room part of it?
It's just the overhead. It's just, we're not, if we're not going to use it, and the city can use it, and we can sort of cohort together, it just makes a lot of sense.
What is the idea about the end of that 10-year lease? What would take place at that time?
Well, 10 years, is like an eternity in today's world. So what we had put in the agreement, now, and understand, that's just a letter of intent. So there's a lot of work around if we get to a final agreement. But I believe the language in that was that would be reevaluated at the end of 10 years, that we would either start paying fair market value on lease, or if we still needed the help, if you will, to maintain break-even operation, maybe we could negotiate a little bit longer on that. It's very open-ended. Was that about what you remember, Mayor?
And the only help now in this project, if the city was to be a cohort in the property, as you put it, would simply be free lease, no longer utilities. Because if the city has no part to play in
That's
it
right.
regardless, then
That's
our
right.
water, sewer, gas
It's
has
all
no
us.
play in this at all. It's
That's
just
right.
simply space that you're acquiring, 13,000 square foot.
That's right.
So,
Are we still providing utilities in the agreement?
No, well, not now, not in this, no.
No, I mean, if we do purchase the property and you use that area.
That's what we had negotiated in the letter of intent. Now, again, like I said, if we want to move forward and talk about further purchase agreements, we can talk through that if we need to.
But as you stand here tonight, you have announced to the Health Services Development Agency of the state of Tennessee, to the citizens of Portland, because this is going out on TV.
Yes, sir.
That HCA will have an operating ER in the city of Portland before the end of 2013.
Yes, sir.
Regardless of what we do as a city.
That's right. And we're going to update the imaging services there too, by the way. Yeah.
This is going to sound like a crazy question, but what if the city offered to purchase the property and they didn't want the ER on the campus at all? Would you back out of the deal completely? Would
Well,
they
you
still
never
sell it
say
to the
never,
city?
but I would say probably.
So they wouldn't sell it to the city?
Pardon me?
They would not sell the property to the city if that agreement wasn't made?
Well, when we first started this discussion, that was certainly on the table. But again, as you think about really the necessary services on the healthcare side, it really just makes sense to do it.
But I was just curious if
together.
the city wanted to buy it and not
And
have that.
not have an
and
ER?
Would you still consider going somewhere else in Portland and putting an ER if you see that there's a need for it now?
At this point in time, probably not, because we are pretty much on the fast track now and prepared to go ahead and reopen. So I think that would certainly do nothing but delay the whole idea of ER services back up here. And I never had any indication as we've talked through this partnership that was something that the city would like. I could be mistaken on that.
Well, I mean, our whole goal in all this beginning was to accomplish 2 or 3 different things. And
Yeah.
so I think we, like she said, to commingle too many things at once and kind of got
Yeah.
it pretty gray. And so
Yeah.
now she's up here telling us that we're, what they're willing to do and separate. And we've got a lot of work ahead of us. We want
Yeah.
to continue, We're not going to
So-
get decided
so-
tonight. It's just things we're going to talk about.
That's right.
Want to
So
continue
we will
on.
move on with those plans, and that we'll make those public, of course, going forward and involve the community in that, because that's a pretty exciting opportunity to bring the ER services back operational up here. We're very excited about being able to do that and look forward to continued work with the city, if it makes sense, for the remainder of the purchase agreement to be
That'll be a
vetted out.
fully functional 24/7 facility.
24/7, staffed around the clock, 365 days a year, yes. And when you think about that being within our TriStar HCA network, literally, when a citizen comes to that ER at Portland, when we get it up and running, they're coming to the network of TriStar because we have the ability to seamlessly move patients if we need to and get them to those services they need, be that Hendersonville or be that Skyline, Centennial, Summit, wherever that need for that patient arises, we will take care of that from that door, from that stop of that door. So that's pretty exciting. And we also bring to the Portland community, from the ER standpoint, all the quality accolades that we have today. We'll have chest pain accreditation, stroke accreditation, telemedicine opportunity in the ER, which is a fabulous opportunity to be able to have telemedicine capabilities on a patient that may come to the ER here and may have something really going on that would be of benefit to have a neurologist, as an example, kind of through telemedicine, or our ER physician at Hendersonville through telemedicine to help make some decisions about that patient's care. So that's pretty exciting.
Brings another question is this place going to be staffed with primarily nurse practitioners?
No,
Or
it'll
will
be a
it-
physician. It'll be a physician 24/7. Now, there could be some mid-levels that in there, but most likely it's going to be a physician and RNs that would staff just the clinical area of the ER. And then, of course, we'll still have the imaging services staffed that would go to 24/7 as well, of course. Yeah.
I appreciate you taking the time to be with us tonight.
Absolutely.
Thank you
My
for all
pleasure.
that came and for the presentation.
My pleasure.
What prompted you to get this plan together so quick?
Well, this
Was
really
it the
wasn't
need?
quick, because we've been working on this for over a year.
No, I'm talking about by the end of 2013, whether or not we buy the building.
Because of the, what would I say, the noise around the ER, and it creating a lot of discussion and getting in the way of the really talking about the purchase, because it was getting mingled together. And so we had every intent of moving on with the ER, with the purchase agreement that we were talking about. So we
Well-
already were committing to that.
My understanding was it was a promise of 10 years, no lease. Is that right? A promise of 10 years.
Because of the purchase price, that
Mhm.
was part of the negotiated deal, that we would be using the space and not paying a lease on it for a period of 10 years. That was part of that negotiated price point there. Yeah.
So if we go ahead now and buy the building,
Mhm.
you're gonna have, of course, you'll do the renovation and everything, but you're gonna have a free emergency room as far as, I mean, it's not
Well-
gonna be a freestanding.
Right.
You're just gonna remodel what's there and furnish it.
Well, it's at 3.8 million investment that we're going to put
Well,
into that space.
how much of that is movable?
We can move the imaging equipment and the stretchers and things of that nature, yeah.
You could move everything in it but the room.
2.3 is the construction part, okay, yeah.
I
Michael
think-
just says
I
2.3
think where his
is just
concern
the
is if they want to
construction.
open an ER in 2 years, close it and go out of business. Or
Yeah,
to
I-
leave it
yeah,
in.
I understand.
It'll be there for a long term.
Yeah, I understand.
Well, you closed it because you were losing money.
Right,
What, 4 years ago?
right.
Now, what makes you think that you're gonna spend that much money and it's gonna be so profitable?
Well, because like I said before, when you look at the campus of this footprint here and all the expenses that were associated with that 4 years ago for just 5 patients in this whole building, that was a lot of overhead that we're not going to have under this arrangement. So we feel very confident that and we're not looking to make a profit, we're looking at just trying to break even so that we don't have a lot of expense in the red, if you will, like we did 4 years ago.
Your benefit to having it is being able to transfer people to your facility.
Absolutely,
I
it's
mean, that's-
provide the service to the community.
Not necessarily how much that
first
place
and
makes, get
foremost.
them somewhere else.
Yeah, first and
makes
foremost,
sense.
yeah, first and foremost is to be able to provide that service to the community. And then certainly,
And then it's competition after that.
yeah, yeah. But then certainly it's the ability to provide that care, no doubt about it. Yeah.
Doug?
Yes, sir.
One question, assuming the city did not move forward with the purchase,
Mhm.
you're still gonna have the shell and several dollars of overhead.
That's right.
Do you have an alternative plan for it?
No, we don't. We don't, as far as today. Like I said earlier, we had committed some space for a fire and an EMS station when the county is ready to do that, so that'll be on some parcel of it, but that won't be ours, that'll be donated land. What we can do, though, when we kind of wall that off a little bit better and a separate entry, we can more easily close down the rest of that building space, so it creates a lesser upkeep and overhead from that standpoint. So that'll be a help. That would be a help to do that.
Well, I mean, even if we don't move forward, it's still gonna be for sale then.
Perhaps.
So, right, you know, so, I mean, it's not like we're the only
Yeah.
one that will have
Yeah,
option to buy it,
perhaps.
so.
We would entertain that, sure. But I tell you, what I've heard from my HCA folks when we've talked through this is, I mean, they're committed to the ER, putting it back up here with or without the sale of the building, whether that goes to the city or to someone else. So it's not contingent, again, it's not contingent on that.
So the additional overhead, i.e. property taxes, minimum maintenance and whatever, was figured into your equation as far as opening the ER?
That's right.
Well,
That's right.
if they lose the medical office building, that would be about the amount of revenue that they're asking for us in leasing. So if they don't get it from us, they still have it coming in from the
Yeah,
medical office building.
That's a great point, yes. Because we would still own that then. Yeah, you're right.
What is the chances of reopening the entire hospital at some point?
Well, I'll never say never, but again, back to that, back to that point of the expense overhead of an inpatient, a fully operational inpatient operation. But, you know, I would never say that that would not be possible. It could be in a scaled-down version. It could be possible. And if we get reopened services here and that's working very well, I would never say that that would never be a possibility. We still have licensed beds that we could do that with.
Well, I'll be honest with you. There's a stigma that goes with that place out there. A lot of people were very unhappy with that emergency care that they got out there. That's why.
Well, you know what,
Thanks.
I appreciate you saying that, because that gives us the opportunity to make sure that we get that message out and we provide that level of care and service that nobody would hesitate to go and seek that care.
And hopefully that's in the past and that'll be changed.
Yeah,
That limit for
absolutely, absolutely.
that. Do you know if the price that they negotiated with us, is that the absolute lease they will take for the property?
I'll let the mayor speak to
Well, I
that.
mean, I mean, that's what we got down to, that seemed to stop at that point, so, you know, it's, like she said, you know, that was a letter of intent, and we can throw something back at them.
Well, but as we've heard, never say never, because
That's
things
right.
change quickly
That's exactly
here
right.
lately in the
You
community of
never say
Portland.
never.
So, I think she made it plain.
3 weeks ago, we couldn't get in the yard, now we got 2 of them.
How about that? No, you're going to have one.
Well, we appreciate you coming up, and do you want to introduce the rest of your staff? I mean, just so, because I think we'll be seeing
We
them.
have Kat,
Still think it's,
Michael McDonald. Michael Morrison has McDonald on my head. Is our Chief Financial Officer. And Shauna Zodi is our Marketing Director. And Casey Donahue is our Chief Operating Officer and actually oversees the campus operations from an administrative standpoint today.
All right, very good.
Okay.
Well, again, thank you a lot, and we
Thank you
appreciate it.
very
and I,
much. We look
think,
forward to bringing updates. Anytime you'd like an update, just let me know. And hopefully we'll be seeing some movement pretty soon out there on the campus. So
All right, thank you.
thank you very much.
guys.
thank you.
Mayor, can we take a small break?
It's been requested that we take about a 5-minute break.
What's up, John?
Call the meeting back to order. Appreciate your patience on the break. I think Alderman Callis has a request.
Ms. McLeod has joined us here from Sumner Regional, and I'd just like we could suspend the rules for a moment and give her an opportunity to speak. She came here tonight to kind of share a couple of things with us.
Have a motion and a second.
Second, I just had a brief question. If you could just,
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, Ms. McLeod.
just a brief question. How you doing tonight? Is she speaking as I know, a resident of Portland, as a employee of Sumner Regional or High Point, or exactly which, I can't, I think would be.
Let her tell you that.
Well, first, my name is Mitzi McLeod, and I'm actually one of the nursing directors at Sumner Regional Medical Center. I have been an employee there for over 14 years, as well as I have worked at Hendersonville Medical Center as well. I am a resident of Portland. I've lived here for about 15 years, and then my husband was born here, and I do have 2 children. So the ER is very important to me as an employee, because I would love to work in my hometown, as well as for the community, because I have kids that play on that football field. And I've seen them get hauled off with broken arms and everything, so I have a vested interest in this. I did want to ask a question. I did not realize that Hendersonville, or that HCA was going to leave. I just wanted to clarify, and I know she mentioned it, but it wasn't very clear on exactly what the cost was going to be, and did they actually have those funds committed to start immediately as she had presented? So I just wanted to ask those questions, but they're not here to ask them at this time. I know that you know, based on Ms. Peach's presentation, that Sumner Regional is 100% committed to this. They have got the option to buy the property. It is picked out. The plans are there. We have the drawings. We're basically in the exact same stage that they are. We have everything ready. I think the biggest thing to consider, and that was not mentioned by HCA, was she talked about in 2008 how 17% of the population basically went to the emergency room here in Portland, and they ended up basically losing money, not being able to break even. And Ms. Peach had mentioned to you that we have over 6,000 people from Portland that go to our ER at Sumner, and they seek services at Sumner Regional Medical Center. So it's basically like voting. If you're going to look at whether people drive down 109 and go to Sumner Regional or go to Hendersonville Medical Center, they're going left. So I think that that's something that needs to be considered as far as the public as well. And then any questions that you guys have, I can do my best to answer them in the absence of Ms. Peach. I am very passionate about it, so hopefully I can give you appropriate answers if you have any questions or anything.
I've got one. If you say that you guys are in the same position as far as where they're at in their stage of being able to build, and I know that their remodel is probably as complicated and as complex as building a new facility would be, but what hurdles, since they already have the license and everything, if this is going to be a race, are they ahead in the race at this point? I mean,
She said she had contacted the state today about the license. Ms. Peach has also already spoken with our lawyers, and they are applying for the CON, which part of that was the address on the property, which they have the option to buy. So they are ready to move forward. And I've seen the plans and everything.
what was their projected time frame is sooner than I think Ms. Peach told us the other night was.
I think she had said early 2014.
Right.
Whether they could speed that up or not, I'm not sure. I know that she said for the CON that they would not be able to be in front of I believe she said a judge or the board until, I think the first date was January.
Now, since, was it January or March?
She had to have the paperwork in, I know, by January 14th.
The paperwork had to be in by
15th.
January, and they would go in front of
I
March
don't believe we did
for
know when
approval.
they was meeting.
That's
but
right.
The paperwork had to be in.
I guess my question is, can HCA move forward before that March meeting?
And I could not give you a definite answer with that, but I would say that they probably could. Like I said, their plans looked very similar to these, obviously a different location, but as far as all of that already being laid out and ready to go, it is.
That's what I was going to ask about the certificate of need again, is if HCA already has that thing in place, if they already have a license where they don't have to have that, is it possible for Sumner Regional still even get one?
It is.
It is, but
So they can
conversations-
argue the point that there's a need for 2?
That's all been taken out of our hands.
I had a
Well, I mean,
conversation
that's
with,
between
I had a
the
conversation with the lady at the state and the attorney for the board of Mr. Christopherson, and he basically said that they can still apply for the certificate of need, and the board would have to determine whether they would issue that or not. the lady at the state said that HCA didn't have to apply for it because it was absorbed into their license after they became a facility. I didn't get the feeling that if HCA was willing to move forward using their license, that the odds were very good that LifePoint would get the CON. The only way that LifePoint would get the CON, basically, based on conversations that I had, was if HCA showed little or no interest in reopening their own facility.
I believe that LifePoint would have to prove their case, as well as she had expressed the last time that she was here, how important it was for the city of Portland to back one or the other. That's vitally important that the city want to back Sumner Regional Medical Center and LifePoint hospitals in that venture.
The thing that bothers me is that it did not seem to me that HCA was very aggressive in wanting to do this until they found out Sumner Regional wanted to jump in here and do it, and now they're trying to beat them to the punch. That's the only thing that bothered me about that is in my mind, I hope I'm wrong when I think that, I hope that they're not wanting to try to get a facility open and do that just to keep Sumner Regional from being able to do that, because then it might, the best of intent may not be there if that's the case.
I don't doubt that that's the case on both sides of this, that opening the facility to prevent the other one from taking their business is why they'd be opening. The problem that I see with LifePoint's side of this is that HCA doesn't need our support at this point. I don't, based on the conversations I had, HCA doesn't have to gather our support, and even if we supported LifePoint 100% and backed it 100%, that still isn't going to be enough. And I'm willing to give LifePoint my support in trying to get the CON, but I don't think that that's going to weigh heavily enough. I don't think it's going to be a heavier factor than the fact that HCA can go in and open it, whether if we told them we don't want them here, they could still open the facility.
HCA would, and I am a nurse at heart, so I do get passionate, but HCA would have to first have the people come in the door and want to be there. Then they have to have the business at their other facility. So those patients would still need to go to either Skyline or Hendersonville Medical Center, which they don't choose to go to now.
Right.
They choose to go to Sumner. So we have the ability to go from a 155-bed hospital up to 195 beds very soon, just for the simple fact that we are continuing to grow. I'm not sure that Hendersonville Medical Center has plans to be able to expand that many patient beds. We're able to handle the business. We're able to handle the increased volume, and the people already come to us. That's what we're there for.
The problem with that is that won't come into play with this situation. The reason why they called Health Services and Development Agency today was to basically kill the third leg of the CON requirement. The only advantage that LifePoint had was an absence of services in the city of Portland. That's no longer there. Once they called and said, this is what we're doing, they gave them the plan. Ultimately, they killed LifePoint coming to the city of Portland. They can apply. There's no problem in that. They're not going to approve it because they won't have 2 ERs in the city of Portland, and one who already holds a CON in the license has said we're committed. That's where we found ourselves today. It's the biggest surprise to me. I'm sure it's probably to everyone else. But, and I think it was alluded to, and the reason why was because some pressure has been put on. LifePoint stepped up, which was a surprise to us. And because of that stepping up, they put the pressure on HCA. Ultimately, we want an ER in the city of Portland. It may not work out exactly the way we hoped, but unfortunately, they hold the cards.
So I think the question is, do they have the funds? Are they approved, and will they be able to?
She said
break
tonight
down
that the
things?
funds were committed. She said that in her statement. So, I don't know. We'll just have to see. I don't know how they can, since they've made it public and told the state today, I guess it'd be hard for them to back out of that. I don't know what other recourses. I know Ms. Peach says she's contacted the lawyers and things for your company to see what they need to do, but it's an uphill battle, I know for sure now, since they've contacted the state.
Yes.
Based on what the state has told myself and told Mr. Harbin, it will be difficult. So,
Well, they said by the end of 2013 they could be up and running. They say they can be up and running by the first of 14, it's not that much difference in the time as far as I'm concerned.
It's not, but if it was,
Nothing to do with it.
the thing is, I think that the general consensus is if it was up to us, we might choose one way, but we don't have a hand in it anymore. Whether regardless of who we support more or who we wish could come over the other, whether we do or not, it's gonna be up to the people who handle the
course it
licenses and the certificate of needs, and it's completely out of our hands at this point. I believe. I don't know that, but.
I'm
it
not
seems
sure
that
either.
way.
My question, or what I would be talking to Ms. Peach about, is if we can still apply for the certificate of need with the backing of the city of Portland and still move forward with that.
Yeah.
There's one question.
Got that.
Since we were talking about 2008 sort of being the barometer of the two, and the 6,000 visits to ER was actually a later date, do you have the numbers for Sumner Regional from the Portland zip code for 2008?
I do not. We could probably have them. I do not have them with me.
That might be interesting to look at, just based on some of the conversation I've heard.
And that they had expressed the numbers for 2008, but I never heard actually what their numbers are today, what their ER visits from this zip code are today. And I know that Ms. Peach had shared that information. So, any other questions or any?
We
Good luck.
appreciate you being
Yeah,
here.
thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you
you
very much.
for coming up today.
And appreciate your enthusiasm for Portland, so. All right, we'll move on. Mr. McDowell, the first item of the planning commission.
First ordinance on planning tonight is ordinance number 12-54. An ordinance to amend the City of Portland, Tennessee zoning map by zoning an area of property consisting of 21 parcels and the public road rights-of-way of Vaughn Parkway and Interstate 65, totaling approximately 477 acres at Vaughn Parkway in Robertson County to Industrial General, IG. Move to approve, get on the floor.
Have a motion, to have a second.
Second.
This is the second reading, we had a public hearing on it, and nobody was here to
Was
speak.
this was the cleanup for
Right.
making sure that everybody was on the same page
Right.
between us and Robertson County?
Right, when we annexed, we should have actually had this part of our annexation and ordinance along with the zoning. We did not do that, but it's just mirroring exactly what's there, just getting it, paperwork in order.
It's no new
No.
annexations
No
or anything
new
like that.
annexation, no new zoning, it's just, getting everything in a proper, order. Anything else, anybody? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Next item is ordinance number 12-55, and this is a first reading. An ordinance to amend the City of Portland, Tennessee zoning map by rezoning an area of property at 1073 North Broadway from General Commercial Service District to multifamily. It's property of Steve Somerville. Move to approve for, get on the floor for discussion.
Have a motion, have a second.
Second?
All right, comments, questions?
Is this that property that we discussed once before that used to have another piece of property tied to it, but they decided not to pursue that, or is this something?
This
I'm
is
trying to
on the-
look up the map right
It's
now.
on the
but
other side of the road, up right below the new store at 31W1.
Faces 109, I mean, actually touches 109. Between the street that cuts in the subdivision, you've got some, lots, and then you got this property between there and the new store.
Is this gonna be affected by the proposed,
Interstate exchange.
no, where we're moving the water lines and coring out of the road and all
Just
that?
the, front and, side by the, well, I call the front on 109, and then the, between, there and the, service station there. Mark.
Steve, you think it'd be more of an advantage to have it RM1 and not GCS as it is now?
Because of the bypass that's coming, we know it's coming. It's gonna cut down on my traffic count, and of course, we've been in a recession. And then, look, moving it to GCS, I'm ready for that property to start producing income. That's my stance on it.
So this would border it with the RM Win property that's on Highway 259.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right.
Yes, backs up to it.
Did I understand correctly? This is not the property that we discussed a while back.
No.
That some people were opposed to.
Yeah,
That's correct.
Change.
Yeah, that was across the road from
Okay.
another area.
Luther, tell me the difference in GCS and RM1.
GCS is commercial,
Are
and
you-
RM1 would be for like apartments or
Do what now?
multifamily. RM1 would be for multifamily dwellings. You know the apartments that Steve has now on the back,
Yeah.
it'll be zoned now where they could put those on it. It currently is zoned for a convenience store or any kind of general commercial service.
Well, is this,
So you're actually downgrading it, not upgrading it.
Important.
It's actually downgrading the zoning, right? Well,
It's just different
how you look at
classification,
it.
it's kind of same level, different classification.
is this gonna affect the, houses already in that subdivision?
Well, I don't think so. I've got a line of trees, evergreen trees that, you know, and the houses back or side, you know, right up to the back of the other apartments. So, you know, we've already got 28 units up there. So, you know, I don't know, we can flip it every which way you want to, but I wouldn't think it's gonna affect them any more than what there's already, you know, apartments up there are.
It looks like it affects
6
1,
lots.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lots would be all that would be affected.
And they're already in the general vicinity of other apartments, and,
Well, currently, there's only one lot that goes up against the RM1 zoning.
I mean, just right up against it, but it's not like they're not with that,
Yeah.
they're within eye shot and earshot, and, I mean, it's
Yeah.
not like they're disconnected from them.
When planning looked at this, did they have any concerns about
Didn't.
this? I know sometimes, you know, we think about the gateway and coming in and those things. I think Mr. Summerall has a great point because of the bypass. The GCS probably not as profitable as it once could have been there, and RM1 may be better suited. Just concerns about the, right there by the state line. We already got those behind it, but
Steve, did you ever decide if you're gonna do quads or a duplex? I know you're throwing it around and planning,
We're just kinda,
throwing it around.
you know, we're kinda penciling it in right now. We haven't come up with any dead
Any good plans?
answer on that.
I think, and it's just, I'm sorry, who?
Oh, go ahead.
One, just from my personal standpoint, okay, I don't know if that doesn't mean much, but just from my personal standpoint, especially right there on 109 by the state line. And I know we've got some things in place, but just to ensure that proper screening, especially, you know, the facilities are properly screened right there could be very, very important for the look and view of our city coming in from Kentucky there on 31 and turning down 109 is just a concern for me.
You know, one thing that I think that would help that concern, and I know Steve, you know, plans to adhere to that, because I think planning made him aware that he has to go before design review. And I think design review board, which we have in place in the guidelines, if they'll work with Steve in trying to make a product that the community could be proud of, you know. So I mean, I think those safeguards is there now.
It's
Yeah.
just you have that, I don't know how else to put it out there, you have a perception when you say duplexes or something, you know, you just have that natural perception sometimes. And we just want to be careful, I guess,
Well,
there in
and-
that area.
The whole reason that he's wanting to change it, I think is very important as well. It's not gonna have the traffic that it does now. It's gonna be, I mean, it's the traffic count that comes through there is gonna be.
It'd be hard to get any
dramatically
interest from
changed.
any commercial entity to,
Yeah, it's.
Right.
That's
it's gonna
true, but
cut
you're
it
going to
off.
still get a lot of traffic from 31 to 109.
Oh,
That's not going to change that area, I don't think.
I hope not.
Are you gonna try to fit whatever you do, duplexes, quadplexes, are you gonna combine that all back into one property, or are you gonna try to do it on 3 separate lots like you got here, or?
We're probably gonna do it at one home. And like I said, we're still kinda in the beginning stages of that. I've got an engineer looking at it, drawing it up, you know, like I said. So, we haven't made that final decision yet either, but, you know, I'm leaning more towards doing it as one whole.
That was one comment from the state planner that he recommended to the planning commission, to bring all the parcels in under one parcel.
This RM1, that's your property up there, right? On, Mitchell Road.
No, yes, that's my.
Yeah. Is that where the apartments are? Does this require a public hearing?
Yes, the next reading will have a public hearing.
I bet you it's.
Because we're the first reading tonight. so.
Yeah.
Is the intent
Or
only
no.
to put those along the roadway, or will you fill all the holes?
Well, Mr. Callis, what he's saying, you know, we might actually back those buildings up to 109 and put evergreens up through, I don't know. You know, like I said, we're still
So it's after the back of
working
them
on
there.
that, but we're trying to figure out how we can maximize our, you know, area of land. But, we might actually not even be fronting 109, you know what I'm saying? We might, could, you know, could screen it off, you wouldn't even know it's there.
Sure.
From experience, negative experience, I think it would be helpful that you actually have a plan at second reading, because my experience is that when those rezoning signs go up, although it's only 6 residents that didn't buy into multifamily being in their rear, they're gonna have some concerns. So to get it moving forward and to be able to answer those questions from not just the council, from those residents, I think I'd have me a plan, you know, and commit to it. I think it would help you. I think it would. And this is just from experience, what I've had up here and when a few people show up.
And that public hearing will be, so we have to advertise how many days? So it'll be probably the second meeting in January, then won't it? In order to meet the advertising deadline, so. Probably the second Monday in, or the third Monday in January, probably when the second reading will be, so. Are any other questions for Steve at this time, or comments on this? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you, Vice Mayor. Mike, I think you wanted to.
We've talked here recently about moving forward with our land use and committing to it and approving it. I think that it needs to be brought back up and reviewed through planning or reinstitute the land use committee, whoever. And then we as a council, I think, should really consider moving forward and adopting it officially and having that to apply to everything that we do. Now, this would be let's just use this case for instance. Let's just say in our original land use, we said that was best to have GCS. Then later, after the plan, you see the bypass, that's a prime example to say, okay, I can understand that not being GCS and that being residential, since the traffic or that it's reason. But I think we need to, and we've been encouraged to, actually, to adopt our land use plan officially, and I think we should move forward to that as quick as possible. If that's however best, then planning and those sitting on planning know best. If they want to do it through the planning or reconstitute the land use committee, and the mayor can make that decision. But as a council, I would like to see something come before us soon and adopt it.
Okay. Let's get that on the agenda to next planning
Well, let me
commission,
say,
and then
just,
we'll work
and I
on it.
know it's a constant moving target, but I think we would almost, and I don't want to be a part of it, and I wouldn't, is to go back and look at it totally again, rather than adopt something that we have now. And it would behoove us to really just sort of, you know, take a breath and not do anything to see if that proposed road off of the interstate is going to hit 109, and then sort of do your planning around it, because things does change. And
they're always going to change, but and I think part of that's the reason why we've never moved forward. I think it ought to just be relooked at based on the information we have today. Whoever wants to look at that, planning, whatever committee, present that to us, let us look at it and make a decision. And it needs to be something that needs to be reviewed. I mean, yearly or however you want to go about it, because things will change. But for the sake of our staff, for the sake of planning, for the sake of everybody involved, we all, and this is merely another suggestion, we're at the age that we need to make sure we use our technology to the best benefit. We need whether it's flat screens or projectors, we need every meeting. I ought to be able to come in here, and when planning gets up, I ought to see that map somewhere in this room. Everybody ought to see it. The public, me, you, we ought to see it color, we ought to see it clearly. And when we get ready to rezone something or something, we ought to have that land use thrown right up there and say, well, somebody's looked at that. Somebody said, we thought that was the best way at some time. And unless we see something really, really important change our mind, we should go along with it and stick with that has already been approved. It would be helpful to me.
Yeah.
And so it's just a suggestion.
Just a thought, I like the idea of overlays rather than zoning, because when people come visit your community, and when things change, then we might say, well, we envision this being commercial, not GCS, but now we have a project in front of us. Those residents that have bought property adjacent to that, they really have something to grab a hold to.
Sure.
And say, well, the land use plan, and now you guys are going to change the land use plan and property values and all those. But if it's an overlay, they can't say that this property was zoned, the land use plan called for it. It was overlaid. The city thought that this might be a good idea, but we have a new bypass coming now, so we're changing our perspective. So, just locking ourselves into that land use.
But that's basically what a land use plan is an overlay. It's an overlay that we've looked at because that's subject to change by us at any given time as a council.
An overlay is basically that we perceive that this area would be suitable for a certain type zoning. We perceive it to be. When you adopt a land use plan, I use a Metro, for example. Metro approves an overlay. If it's in their overlay, the planning commission is going to vote it up every time because it's an overlay. They looked at that area. About 80% of their rezoning fails at council because it becomes political. It's just the way life is with rezoning. You can have 2 people show up and depend on their strength in the community, or you could have 20 show up. So that political part's going to always be a part of it. So the part about adopting the land use is just, I like the overlay. Just me personally, I'm going to let it go.
Well, I think we've got the same idea.
Yeah.
Because right now, we even, and that the people who sit on the planning commission now had thought that was an official document, and it hasn't ever been. Whether you want to call it an overlay or land use, we need something official that staff, planning commission, everybody looks at and says, this is what somebody's decided, and hopefully when it comes to council, there's a pretty good percentage rating that the council will approve the plan that they've already approved when it comes to that. And they may or may not, but you still have that.
I agree.
Available to you when it gets here.
Sure,
anyway.
I agree with you, but they're a planning body, we're a political body.
Right.
And you just need to, that's just the way life is.
We'll get, of course, I had met with planning, and I'm working on, some of these new areas, and hopefully have all that done, for January, some thoughts, and so we'll get back on it, and that's something that one of our goals next year is to get done fairly quickly, is something.
And I think that the community will embrace it now, especially in those areas where you have activity.
Right.
Like, Steve's talking about the bypass and all that. So I think the community will embrace the land use or either the overlay, either one.
And then I think it's going to be very important, what Luther, both of y'all have talked about, is, of course, the exchange, we know exactly where it's coming now, there's no questions about it. But, the bypass, and hopefully by first of the year, we'll know exactly what route, that's still up in question, what route it'll be, so then that would really enable us to do some very good future planning, so. All right, that'll be an item we will get on. All right, Doug has something on finance, just real quick.
Each of you should have in your packet a letter from the Comptroller of the Treasury. Really, this is just more of a formality for your information. They want us to distribute these. This is the approval of that T-hanger note renewal that we voted by resolution to do and has already been taken care of. This was their approval letter that needed to be distributed to you, so each of you should have that in your packet. Then when we do the form that's required within 45 days, that'll also be distributed to you.
Okay. Next, I had asked Richard, since the unfortunate situation in Connecticut, that get a lot of questions, are we prepared, or how we would react and so forth, and I know, from talking to my wife, she's an elementary school teacher, and some of the things that the teachers did up there to protect their students is what they're taught here in her classroom and her library she's in, and she's got a plan, they've got a plan, and so I thought it'd be good to Richard just to kind of let us know, and also the public, kind of some things, if something like this hopefully never happens, then kind of what they would do and so forth.
It's unfortunate we have to discuss things like this, but as your police chief, a father, a grandfather, I'm shocked, saddened about the events in Connecticut. We learned a valuable lesson from Columbine. We go back to 7, 8 years ago, when the horrible tragedies happened at Columbine, law enforcement shows up on scene, and the first thing we trained and was taught at that time was set up a perimeter, catch the bad guys coming out. So they waited for 15, 20 minutes to set the perimeter up and get a SWAT team in place. And while that was taking place, the killer kept killing these children. So it's been on my heart all weekend. It's all I've thought about all weekend. And what we have done as a police department, we started many years ago with a partnership with the school system. We know now that we don't wait to go in. We have what we call active shooter, and we're going to team up with two guys. Whoever gets on scene first, 2 guys are going in to try to eliminate that threat. Unfortunately, sometimes you have to kill the killer. I mean, that's what these guys are all about, numbers. Friday was a horrible situation, an elementary school. We don't have officers in elementary schools. Probably need officers in elementary schools, but we don't have those. So what we've been doing since Columbine is train. We train on active shooter. Almost 80% of your police officers are trained for active shooter. We do routine walkthroughs through the schools every day. Just meeting and greeting and going down the halls. We've really stepped that up today and the rest of this week, obviously. Over half of your department is SWAT trained. We are a member of the Sumner County Emergency Response Team, which means that anytime I pick up the phone to call, I can get 20, 25 highly trained SWAT team members and negotiators and their equipment to our little community. And unfortunately, we've had to use it a couple of times this year. We have a mutual aid agreement with surrounding law enforcement. We have fully automatic M16 rifles in our cars. We have level 3 vest. And unfortunately, if we can't pick out the bad guy before the carnage and the crime, then we have to go in and kill the killer. That's what they want. So now we have been fortunate on a few occasions when we get tipped off early on by school officials or a hotline that the school has set up that little Johnny's going to make an attempt to do something bad at school. Plainclothes detectives and police officers in uniform will go to little Johnny's house and knock on the door and search little Johnny's room and talk to little Johnny's parents. We've been successful in that several times. It's all about communication with the school board, school system. We have increased police presence this year. We have in every single car since Columbine map of all 7 schools. And it's just a detailed map. It's also contact information, who we're going to call when we get there, what we're going to do. The Portland school map is in dispatch, and at every school it also has the crisis plan for 12 and 13 that law enforcement and the school system has adopted. So we're ready. We're as ready as we can be when this happens. And I just wanted to tell you guys what we do and what your department does. Any questions about anything?
In most of these situations, that individual takes his own life at the end. So your point is that percentages are that individual's going to create all this havoc, but at the end take his own life.
Right.
But so if we can intervene before that happens,
The longer we wait, the more the body count is,
more damage
unfortunately.
can occur.
Right.
I didn't think about that.
It's either suicide by cop or he's taking his own life. In the case in Connecticut, he took his own life.
I was going to say, without saying too much detail and causing any problems with anybody, I want to tell y'all that you can commend the department, because several years ago there was actually a situation in Portland. You never like to think about that happening in your community, but I don't know how much the chief can tell you about that, but there was a potential situation that would have took place had they not stopped it before it got to that point.
Yeah, we got a tip that this young man had alerted his friends, don't go to school tomorrow. I'm going to do the bad thing. We intervened that night and did a search of his room and found a hit list. Wow, thousands and thousands of rounds of ammunition and guns, and we felt like it was a serious threat. So, it had been many years ago, so. Most of the time it's just rumors, it's just talk. And that's what we're battling now based on the events from Friday. The rumor mill spits out a lot of things that we have to act on.
So instead of waiting 15, 20 minutes to get a perimeter set up and everything, you're going in when you get the call that there's a shooting at school?
Absolutely, we're going in immediately. A minimum of 2, like to have 4 or 5, but these events are gonna happen probably on day shift. When I have 2, 3 officers, and hopefully nobody's in court in Gallatin, so when 2 officers arrive, they're taking their automatic weapons, they're going toward the gunfire. That's the new training.
And
Kill the
sco-
killer.
And I know from being at all the schools, I mean, their security's pretty tight there now. You have to, going through an office to try to get in, they have to punch you in, make you sign into a visitor's list. I mean, they can't stop someone that wants in, that's determined to get in, they can't stop that. So, they do everything they can on their end to try to keep the security up.
Yeah, I think the school in Connecticut was locked down, or at least the doors was locked, but news reports he fired through the windows and stepped inside anyway. And thankful for the quick response of the law enforcement up there, they'd probably been more.
Well, I'm glad to know that the officers are going through the schools, children see them, teachers see them,
We do.
and that you're being proactive about it.
Yes, sir, we are. Really trying to.
I appreciate that.
All right, well, I just thought it'd be good for him to share, and that way kind of let us know what's going on, so.
Thank you, Richard. That's
Thank you, Richard.
very informative.
All right, next we move into legislation. The first item on there is Resolution 12-113. It's a resolution to appoint one member to the Portland Housing Authority. I'm recommending we appoint Andrew Jennings. Do we have a motion to get it on the floor?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Tommy Whitaker is coming off the Housing Authority, and he does not wish to be reappointed, so I'm recommending that we appoint Andrew Jennings. And we do have his bio here somewhere. Unfortunately, in the packet, I will get you out his bio. He did fill it out. It's in somebody's computer, I think, and just failed to get it on here.
You know I was going to ask him.
Well, we had made an effort to be sure and get it before we got here, and it's somewhere it's got lost in the computer.
I think we all know him as Drew, don't we?
Right. Yeah, Drew is who it is, right, Andrew. So that's Drew, Andrew. So, has anybody got any questions?
Is this, Mr. Jennings? I don't think I know him. Has he been in Portland long?
Yeah, basically he went to school here and graduated. He works at the Farmers Bank now.
He
I was
does?
trying to think of his mother and daddy's name, you probably know, and Becky Jennings is his mother, you may know
They
her.
call him Drew.
Drew.
Call him what?
Drew.
Big tall boy.
Oh,
He a big guy.
well, I've heard the name.
Yeah.
He works at Farmers Bank.
Yeah, so it's been several
I've
years.
heard the name, I don't know him.
A real fine quality young man that wants to get active in our community, and this is a good place.
It's encouraging because I'd heard that he actually wanted to get involved in something within the city, and that's encouraging for
Right.
some young individuals.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next is Resolution 12-114. This is a resolution of the payment of interest-bearing solid waste note from solid waste to gas. Do I have a motion to get it on the floor?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
I guess we talked about this at work study. Doug, do you have anything else you need to add, or?
No, I think we had went through the numbers on it, did talk to the state to make sure, they basically approved their choice, and they have. So, what this would do, we would, repay from solid waste to gas, a total of about, $196,300. It would have to be funded through general fund to solid waste, though, because solid waste does not have the funds, so, and we do have the funds available in general fund to do that.
All right, is there any other questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next, we have Resolution 12-115. It's a resolution to adopt a change order and amendments for the consultant and engineering contracts on 2009 Community Block Development Grant Sewer Improvement Project. Do we have a motion to get it on the floor?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
I'm going to let Ms. Gamindon come and kind of explain to you what's going on here. And this covers several projects and kind of in the past and in the future. And
JJ&G Engineering Group began working for the city when we first came under the sewer consent order. And since then, their name has changed to Jacobs Engineering. They worked originally with our state revolving loan program when we consolidated it with Tennessee Stamping's Fast Track Grant application, and where we had 2 contracts that they were working with Cleary Construction and Moore Construction, and all of the work that is directed on all of these projects has been toward the numbered consent order items that we're required to do. Their familiarity with what the state is recommending that we do has sort of allowed them to follow these projects through, because after the Tennessee Stamping's Fast Track application expired and we used those funds, then the Community Development Block Grant, we were fortunate enough to receive that grant for the Airport Road project that you all are familiar with. There being monies left over in that grant, remaining funds allowed us to get a scope change through the state to use that money out in the Evergreen subdivision area, and the contractor on Airport Road was Portland Utilities, and then they bid on the Evergreen project, and they got that project too. However, when one project turns into 2, the engineering firm has twice the design fees and twice the inspection fees. And then Ms. Cox has been with the city for several years helping with the administration. And this is just a resolution to increase their fees as these projects have turned from one project into 2. And they are familiar with our work to get out from under the consent order for our sewer projects.
And actually, part of this is going to turn into a 3rd project.
Yes, it will.
Because
Shoals.
the grant we're getting through Shoals to upgrade, so part of this design from Evergreen is actually going to move into that project. So actually, we're covering basically kind of 3 projects here
That's
in
exactly
one.
right.
And the state has approved these increases.
I don't have that in front of me. What was the increase?
Is it, this is stormwater,
My package.
No, this is
Sewer.
sewer.
My only, because I've watched this fairly closely, are they, as part of this, actually getting releases of areas of the community, or they're just providing the engineering and they're just, because well, Ken, this firm has changed about 3 or 4 times, and we've paid, started in Knoxville and it's in Nashville, and I guess my concern is, are they, a part of what they're doing, are they applying for releasing for areas throughout the community as part of this, rather than waiting to the end and applying for the release?
They have met with the state, and I know Thomas has met with them with the state. They've not actually, they have informed the state on what they've got. I think the plan was at the first of this year, when this other project got done, they're gonna make a formal request to release certain areas of the city, but the state didn't feel like they was quite ready to get to that point yet. And they felt like after this other work was done, that they could do that. So yes, that is part of the plan. It has not been done yet, but it is part of the plan. So.
Now, is this grant money? And does the increases, is it covered by grant money? Or is it
Yes.
coming out of the?
Well, we have a percentage of Community Block Development Grant, and that percentage does not change.
What's the percentage?
What it's
18%.
I believe it, yeah. So that was figured in this project. So basically, this money will come out of the project money, our percentage. I mean, we're only going to spend, if the grant's for $500,000, it's not going to go over $500,000. This won't increase the total amount. It's within the project
About
amount.
134,000. And
Is this what they're doing? Are they putting the liners in other areas? Is that what they're doing?
They're doing some lining, some point repairs, some manhole repairs, some service repairs, a little bit of mixture of,
Personally, before I see any more liners going in, I'd like to see a film of the first liner they put in. I want to see that, see how effective that is. I'm not sure that's all that effective.
we can, Thomas, can you get that? I know the lining has really improved over the years, Melvin, because I had some, of course, I think one of the things that I remembered, and I hope we never do here again, is the grout in place. And I think you remember, that's what really failed bad, was some of that old grout in place that we spent a lot of money on back in the 90s that just really, after the first 2 or 3 good rains, it seemed like it came back in. But I know the lining has really improved over the years. But Thomas, get us, and we'll do that one of the work studies video, or so you can go ahead and see it. So, okay.
What's the total? I'm having trouble making heads or tails of the resolution as to what the actual total is increase. 72,000, is that the total, or is it all these other numbers?
No, it's including 62 engineering, 10,000 for the consultant.
But all of that is.
Your bottom
in
is your
addition
addition.
to the contract one, too.
This doesn't. This isn't.
Okay.
What's the total
Addition.
increase of the entire contract?
For the engineering, I
It's
think it's
62 and-
62, and for Ms. Cox, it's 10,000.
So it is
So
72,000
so
is the total.
72,000.
The total, yes, sir.
Okay, because the way it reads, it makes it sound like a whole lot more.
Well, it's,
So $6,000.
yeah, 62,000 is engineering. That's 22,000 in additional design fees, 14,000 in other engineering, and inspection fees are increased by 26,000.
What's the other engineering?
That's some of these other projects and so forth. that, not just direct, so it's gonna work into another project we got a grant for. So that's, they're having to, in order to make this work right, they're doing some pre-design on the other project to carry it on, so it all ties together. What they plan on doing is, when they're doing it Evergreen, with this one, the next grant is eliminate the pump station on College Street and flow it across, I think, to North Harris, and put another one there and eliminate some of those, eliminate one pump station and then bring it all the way from there, the force main, all the way, which we talked about years ago, all the way to the plant, to get it out of the, where we have older stuff, you know, there on the old part of College Street.
That's what
So
I was
all that
thinking.
is working toward that area.
18%.
So it's quite a bit of work and, going on. Any other comments or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thanks, Denise.
And I think, Tom, they're getting pretty close to being done in Evergreen on this section of it, aren't they? So it's working along pretty good. Next, we have Resolution 12-116. We talked about in work study, a couple lots in Evergreen. Have a motion to get it on the floor for discussion.
So moved.
Have a motion to have a second.
Second.
Okay. It's about a work study that Mr. Collins would like to give the city 2 lots out in Evergreen, one at 103 Evergreen Street and one at 114 Mason. These are can be used as drainage ponds, but let the city get them, and that way we can upkeep them and hopefully keep them where they will work or do some things out there. The question that come up about property taxes. The city's portion on Mason Street is $15.95 a year, and at 103 Evergreen, it's $73.70 a year. Is the taxes, and of course, there is some back taxes owed on this. And the county's part of Evergreen is $244.36 and $93.25 on Mason. At the end of the day, there may be a few extra dollars as time goes on that, and then often give them to us, and then we pay for the transfer fees, and David, and so forth. Open it up for questions.
I just, and I had concerns, I still cannot, I guess in my mind, understand what benefit this is to the city. I went out there and looked at those lots. The one on Evergreen, I mean, it's nothing but a swamp there, all behind all the other lots as it is. I don't know what benefit that is. And then the one lot sitting there by itself, I mean, unless we're going to go in there and dig that out and build a retention pond, I guess I just don't, And on the plats, I couldn't find any notation saying that these were kept for the particular purpose of drainage. And so I guess I'm still.
Yeah, I was gonna ask the same thing, what would you do with the lot?
I
What-
can't, I
what's the
can't, I
deal with
can't
it?
grasp the purpose of us owning them.
Well, I mean, I think
It would just cut out a middleman, basically, is
Right.
what it would do.
when this subdivision was done, it was done back either in the late 80s, early 90s. I don't know what the plat date is. There's several editions. And nowadays, they would be designated, would be either into a homeowner association, the developer had to take care of them, or the city, whatever. Of course, at that time, none of this was done. Planning has really improved since then, and this just give us the opportunity to hopefully help the situation, if at least not make it any worse. And I mean, the homeowner, the owner of the property, we can't really force him to, because it
It wasn't on the books when
wasn't
it
on
was
the books
approved.
as that or
Mhm.
anything, so.
They can fill it up and make mountains out of it if they wanted to.
And even if they do, I don't know that that's a hindrance. And that's what I'm saying. I went out and looked at the property, and I can, unless I go out there and dig a hole that water flows into, and Thomas may be able to help me out with this. The one on Mason, I don't know. I mean, it's surrounded by a
He needs to
road
take
of three
quick
pieces of
break.
property.
He needs to upgrade his film. Hang on just one second. Just hold your thought there, Mike. If it works, it's ready to come out.
Suspended in there. He's got to change on.
After this commercial break.
You got this one here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just a little bit long. What were you doing with anything there? Here's this one. That's a swamp. I mean, what are you gonna do here? Now you're not giving any taxes. And you gotta pay to upkeep it and the liability of that. I don't know.
All right, I didn't go out and look at it, so I don't know what they.
As it is right now, if you wanted to do retention there, you could ask the developer to do it, but you couldn't make it unless you can get the property. If we acquire it, we can do it.
Well, we can't do a detention. We can do a retention.
That's what
That's already swamped.
Well, meeting back on, apologize to the audience, citizens, we had to change the CD out real quick, so Mike, I'll let you continue.
Well, like I said, I don't see any benefit to the city. There's nothing been done with the property as it is. I guess I'm looking for somebody to convince me that if I went in there and cleaned it up, just simply mowing it is helping me, because I don't see that. So are our plans to acquire it, to dig a retention pond on it? You can't do a detention pond there. We already got water flowing. So are we gonna retain water? I guess what is the purpose? Because we lose taxes, and then we got liability of it, and then we gotta keep it up. And are we gonna keep it up? Or are we just gonna let it look like it's been looking? I mean, what is our policy? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm overthinking it. I just went out there and looked at it, and I don't see a benefit, I guess. And somebody needs to enlighten me. Luther, enlighten me. You've done this stuff. Share with me what you think's going on here.
It actually, when the pond on Mason Street's not actually a part of this, it's a part of that development. This particular lot, actually the water that drains from a section completely over to Cottage Street, there's no retention in that whole development over there. All of that water piped underground at some point to this retention and runs along that drain over to Scattersville Road. So it actually, during wet weather, it's actually full. And it does hold quite a bit of water to prevent flooding down the street. Now,
I understand. I understand what it's doing now. My question is, when the city takes it over, what will happen different? 'Cause if
Well-
there's no difference, why should we take it over?
I know where Mr. Collins is headed with this, is he's trying not to do what typically happens, because the city's planning was not where it should be back when this was developed. Typically, people just stop paying taxes, and it's sold at a tax sale, and someone buys it, think they bought a lot in Portland for $100, and lo and behold, they have a retention pond, and then they don't pay the taxes, and it's sold again, and it's sold again. So, I mean, he's not doing that, but that's typically what happened in some of these old developments where actually it wasn't, there was no homeowner association actually put in place to take care of these things.
I got a question. Are you saying that these lots are currently serving a purpose?
Yes, they're holding water to a certain, probably needs to
Okay,
do some
well,
work on them.
to me, then that is enough. If the homeowner, or if the property owner doesn't want the property, and they're currently serving a purpose, he has control over that property. And if he determined that he didn't like them serving that purpose, then he can stop it.
Right,
If we own it, then he can't stop it.
right.
But he can't put the water on another property owner either, though. Those other property owners
He can
will
limit it.
will
I mean,
have
there's certain
rights.
things.
He has rights too. He can level his own property.
The property's level. Let me just share this. I may be the only person here that sees a problem here, and that's fine. I would encourage you to go out and look at these pieces of property, and then somebody come tell me why the city wants this. Because I'm having difficulty, or if you've come to me and said, we want this, and we're gonna improve this. We're gonna do something different, and this is what our plan is. But if we're just simply taking it so somebody else can't do nothing with it, and if you'll go out there and look at it, you can see there's not a lot gonna be done one way or the other
And
unless
if we
we
dig it out, we're
actually
gonna
put
put a
some.
fence around it. We don't have to.
That's not the issue in my mind. And I do know which two properties are in question. I have been out there to look at it even before this came up. I'm in that subdivision quite a bit. What it comes down to is, and I'm not casting aspersions on anybody. You know, we try to prevent problems from happening. We try to be proactive and get on the front end. But legally, by the book, if something happened at that property out there that impeded the water flow, if it just growed up and didn't hold on to water that much anymore, the property owner, as it is right now, would not be under any liability to do anything about it.
We've got them all over the city.
And I think we should do what we can to get rid of those. I'm not arguing that point. What I'm arguing is this is something we can do about this one, to where if something does happen in the future or something does need to be done, we cut out the middleman, we can do it. We don't have to negotiate with the property owner to get it done.
And that's what I said. But do we think right now these two pieces of property are actually being effective at what we're saying here tonight, that they're actually serving? Are they being effective at that?
Well, that's what I asked.
I don't feel like they're as effective as they could be. They are serving a purpose. I think the purpose could be improved. And, I mean, like I say, the way these lots have developed over the years and through planning, things are taking over different. This is just one of the others. And a lot of you know Evergreen is a subdivision we have quite a few complaints from time to time of drainage. I just think it'd be an opportunity for us as we move forward to try to get a problem, to try to help it and benefit it, and at least keep it from getting any worse than it is.
And as far as the taxes go, they're not being paid right now, and it's less than $100 a year, so we're really not getting anything by keeping it on the tax rolls as it is that I know of. So there's no benefit there, but there is some benefit to being in control of it to do whatever might need to be done, or any improvements that might be made that we can do at that location. There is benefit there.
Well, I mean, I'm not gonna belabor this, but I got a public works director here. I mean, I'm still looking, I'm not getting enlightened, I guess, at all. You have looked at these properties. So in your mind, and you tell me if I'm wrong, you're either gonna, say we're not doing nothing to it, we're just gonna keep the culvert clean and the place mowed, and that's better than nothing. Or two, we're actually going out there and doing something more than that, and we've actually thought about that, or we've never even thought about that. Have we ever even thought about these properties yet to even doing anything more? Because I don't know what else more can be done unless you dig a hole.
No, there's been no drainage calculations done for these properties. The point of these properties would be, to be beneficial to the city, would be that you'd have control over it. As of right now, you don't have control over it. And it may only affect 5 people, it may only affect 1 person. But the point is that you'll have control over it, and the city will be able to do what needs to be done in the future.
All right, any other comments or questions?
We'd have control over it. I mean, we'll have to do something to it. I mean, we can't take it and just leave it laying there, can we?
Well, we could, but I hope we wouldn't. I hope we would try to do it to make things better for everybody.
Like, keep it mowed?
Keep it cleaned up, mowed,
Cleaned
some of
up.
it's wetlands, you're gonna have to keep some vegetation in there, there's certain things you're gonna have to do, so.
You know, the fact of the matter, it was graded not so long ago, and given its elevation, given that it's perceived to be a wetland, there's very little that anyone's gonna be able to do to it, except maybe maintain the perimeter of it. I mean, there's just not a lot you can do with it. The large area off of Mason Street, which is actually where my development is, part of that retention drains into that. It was designed to drain into that, then drain into that ditch across the street. I mean, it's just. And as I say, typically what happens is people stop paying taxes on it.
But you're saying that there's properties that are designed to drain into those two properties?
Yeah.
But there's nothing that says that he has to continue to allow that, correct?
No, he couldn't prevent, I don't think that he could go in there and suggest that fill it up and make it a building lot, because it would the flooding we would have over on Cody, well, not Cody, what's that? All the
Cody Court, yeah.
Your Cody Court and all of that water drains at some point through that retention pond.
So that was planned, this was planned for a detention area, right?
Well,
all this water was funneled through this lot.
It is that now, but he's not obligated to any law to allow all the water off everybody else's property to run to his property, right? He can build his up.
Well, I think that.
I'm not saying he would ever do that. I'm saying it's even plausible for that idea to exist.
I don't think
but
he could do that, because then he would back water up on other individuals.
It would be it'd be their water that he's backing up, correct?
No, it was.
But he's also under no obligation to maintain it.
He's not. What I'm saying is he's not under any obligation currently
It's
to
more of
allow to upkeep this property to where it's functioning the way that it is now.
But no, but we don't keep it, he decides he don't need it, wants to sell it, wants to keep the next person from doing it.
Right.
That's what I mean. It's
just
not.
protecting for the future, basically, maintenance and protecting for the future.
And it's not a huge deal. I mean, Portland's not gonna go underwater if we don't buy this thing, and it's not gonna go broke if we do. I mean, we're talking very minimal expense here.
And
It's just something that might save us a headache in the future.
Right. So,
Well, it might be something, if we own it, if it does become an issue, that there has to be something done there to protect the surrounding area, then we should own it, so we can
right.
do what we have to do to protect the rest of the area, rather than somebody own it and just let it lay there and do nothing.
See, at some
And then-
point, excuse me.
Then the citizens say, well, the city had a chance to take this and take care of this problem, maybe eliminate this problem, and they wouldn't take it. And now we're stuck with this water problem that could be eliminated if the city had that lot and could clean it up and make a ditch across it or something where the water would funnel faster or move faster or something. I don't know. I haven't looked at the lots, but evidently the water runs across this lot and runs into a tile under the street. Is that right?
No, actually, there's a tile. There's a I think it's an 18 or 24-inch tile that runs from another phase of Evergreen that comes across Mason Street that runs directly into this pond. Well, actually, it runs directly into this pond, and then there's actually drains between houses over on the other development that actually drain into this pond that carries the water on over to Scattersville Road.
Well, basically, all that water in that subdivision goes to that drain.
Yeah, that's
All the subdivision drains through that.
If we can get some type of commitment here tonight, and Mayor and Public Works Director can definitely make this happen, that we're gonna actively go out there and make an improvement, I can support it. if we're not gonna make any improvement on it, I cannot find any value in putting us liable for these particular pieces of property out there. For me, I
Well,
can't, I'm sorry.
I can't see us not doing nothing to it because we force other people to take care of their property, so why don't we take care of ours?
Well, we have a bad habit of not taking care of ours,
I
now
know.
that we're making other people do theirs, so that's.
So if we do, you know, if we take it, which I'm not opposed to it, for the simple reason that the whole subdivision drains across that lot. And, somebody needs to keep it cleaned up where the water can move and not let it get growed up so bad that it start backing the water up and pushing it around off onto some other property.
Has there been any, I know there's been rampant in that subdivision, lots of drainage problems for lots of different reasons, but with the recent rain events that we've had, have we experienced anything to where what Alderman Menace is describing has taken place?
I've not had any calls from out there or been made aware of anything. Not saying it hasn't been, but I've not been made aware of anything.
Because I haven't been out there while it's raining. You know, every time I'm out there, it's usually dry.
All I can do is say, you know, we'll make a commitment to at least keep it clean and try to do the improvements we can, you know, in-house, and then if, that's all we can do is, you know, make that commitment to do that.
I've been out there after heavy rains and during heavy rain, and I never looked at this specific lot because I didn't know all this about this water coming to this lot. But I know one thing, that big ditch across the road that takes the water down Scattersville Road, I've seen that thing rolling like a river sometimes.
It actually gets,
There's a lot of water that comes out of that
actually gets
subdivision
out
down
of
through
there.
there.
Actually, it'll get above that bank at times, so.
Would there be any extra liability for us, insurance-wise, for this property?
Well,
I mean, it
the
would
biggest
still
thing we'd probably
add
have to do would
the
be
value would be added onto our road.
maybe
which is
clear
probably
it.
minimum, so.
Well, actually,
if we had to do anything.
Well, you can't do a whole lot because it's considered a wetland. So there's very little that you're gonna be able to do.
Is it designated a wetland by the state?
Yes,
It is.
it is. I cleaned out the lower part of it when I was doing the retention on Mason Street and had got approval from the state. Not the entire pond, but just the area. And actually, I built a dam going into it so that, you know, that it wouldn't overflow. It serves a purpose, and, you know, if this council doesn't want
He's
to
talking
accept it, just,
Right.
not accept it.
When you say, let me clarify something you just said. When you said designated wetland by the state, you mean the open area in the back of the subdivision. You're not talking about these two build lots.
Yes, those two middle lots are, you see those cattails when you were out there?
I'm not saying it's not a wetland.
Yeah.
But those two building lots are not designated as anything on the plat, though, are they, by the state?
At the time that,
Probably
Not at the time of the
that plat
plat.
was put in the record, there's probably several other areas out there would be designated as a wetland today. That's all, you know.
No formal designation.
Big
We're
part-
There's no
looking at-
formal designation that it's a
No,
wetland.
but, yeah.
We're looking
I
at
guess.
20 years forward since a lot of this was done, so. out there. All right, is any other new comments or anything?
One question. I know I'm beating it to death.
No.
Are we under a deadline for this? I'm curious why we couldn't, I asked the question last when we met. Is there any reason why we can't put this off for a couple of weeks until somebody can go out there and actually look at the property and say, Alderman Callis, I feel like that if we do
Well,
this.
if we're gonna do that, we need to actually get engineering. I mean, we can all go out there and have 8 different opinions if we feel like. I mean, if we want to really get that there. But I think it's just opportunity. Let's move on it. Either we do or don't. You know, we can spin our wheels.
We're talking about a $100 a year maximum
Right.
decision here for
I think
about
I really
40
believe it
minutes
goes
now.
deeper than that. I'm sorry. I think something else. We're opening ourselves up to something. I'm a little scared about that. But y'all go ahead.
You
that's
keep
fine.
talking
I'll
about liability. Are you worried about some kid getting off in there, or
I don't know.
what's the
That's-
liability are you
I
talking
don't know.
about?
I mean, we got
That's what
property all the way
liability is.
around
Anything
it.
that might happen ever.
Well, no, I'm just saying
That
that's.
seems a little unfair.
No, I mean, and you bring that up oftentimes. You said you like to look for devil's
I
advocate on stuff.
I usually
but-
have a specific, though, I don't. just
Well,
throw
I don't
anything.
know. I don't know what it could be. And just like Melvin brought up, if we own it, are now we liable, or are we committed to it? And when the other property owner says, you know, I couldn't get no waiver for it because at those times those laws said you couldn't do nothing, but now we're a city, are they going to expect us to do something they didn't expect the builder to do? I don't know that. I mean, I don't know what lies ahead. I mean, what problems we'll face, but. You know, if you want to take it, take it.
So
I'll
as
just
far
have
as
to pass on
the
this.
liability of a child or somebody falling in it, the liability is not near as bad there as it is that big ditch going down through there, open ditch, where all the water goes.
It's up to council. What do you wanna, somebody wanna put a motion to delay it for a little more study, or you wanna go ahead and vote on it, or it's up to?
I think based on the conversation I've heard here, we're ready to vote on it.
Well, all in, everybody ready to vote? All in favor of aye, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
All right, two noes, raise your hands.
Now, I'm gonna abstain since it's been so controversial, because my retention pond drains into it.
Passes 3-2. One abstention. All right.
Because, you know, they making a mountain out of a, just a boogeyman behind every door.
All right, we, that is the end of the meeting unless anyone else has anything. We do need to meet in executive session. I promise you, if you all get back there, it'll be real quick. Just need to update you. Other than that, meeting adjourned.
We good in here?